Please pray with me. May these words that I speak be grounded in my soul, encouraged by the God presence in me. And may these words that you hear be captured by your soul, enlivened by the God presence in you. Amen. We know that much of the biblical story is written as metaphor to help us understand both the nature of God and the human condition. This is certainly true about parables such as the one we heard read this morning. However, with metaphor, as with most things, there is always the possibility of getting the metaphor wrong. This particular parable has been most often interpreted as describing the nature of God, that God is a kind of super being imagined in our image, and that God is then the landowner in this story. And unlike humans, this God treats everyone the same, with unconditional love. That's all well and fine, but I don't believe for a minute that that is the point of Jesus telling this story. I think we got the metaphor very, very, very wrong. In every single English translation of this text, the story begins with Jesus saying, "For the kingdom of God," or as I choose to say, "For the kingdom of God is like a landowner." He doesn't say, "For God is like a landowner," but rather he is describing what fairness looks like in the kingdom. And the kingdom not being some heavenly hereafter place, but the kingdom right here on earth, right then and right now. Jesus is saying that this is what fairness needs to look like in our everyday lives. But we don't want to go there. I don't want to go there. And I ask, why? It seems to me that the kind of fairness Jesus is calling us to be part of, to embrace in fact, is completely countercultural. Politically, economically, socially, and even religiously. I have come to see this as an elephant in the room. An elephant in every room, in every legislature, in every corporate boardroom, and most every place of worship. The elephant is a very simple question that demands a very simple yes or no answer. The question, is every single human life of equal value? Is every single human life of equal value? It's the elephant in the room because I believe deep in our hearts we all know the answer is yes. But our practice, politically, economically, socially, and religiously, is a resounding no. Our politics allow some of us to be homeless and hungry, allow some of us to have less access to education, to healthcare, even to safe drinking water. Our economics allow growing numbers of people to live in poverty while a tiny few become obscenely rich. And our religions allow women and children to be marginalized and even support killing of some other humans in the name of God. So we may want to answer the question, is every human life of equal value, with a yes, but our lived practice is unfortunately no, no, no. And so instead, myself included, most often we choose not to ask the question so that we don't have to answer it. It's the elephant in the room. Yet this is the message of the parable. Rather than a world that judges the value of a human being by how much they do or do not contribute, We are being challenged to become a world that holds first and foremost the innate value of every human life and develops a politic, an economy, a social system, and a religion or spiritual path that upholds that truth. To create a world, to create the kingdom of God where every child, every woman, and every man has enough. One of the ironies of the 21st century is that as the number of humans committed to compassion grows, and it is growing at a tremendous rate around the world, whether we have that sense or not, even though that's happening, those committed to maintaining a world without compassion are becoming more resolute and determined to thwart our advancement as a species. Another great, great divide is emerging. And if there's anything we don't need, it's another divide. Yet Jesus would say the same today, that compassion must be the foundation of our lives together, of all life together. It is why I struggle and why I work so hard every day to remind myself that all of life is connected. And so all of life is important. We are part of an evolving cosmic collective. We have to set aside and we have to get over this delusion of separation that we hold on to so very tightly. The real kingdom of God is like a landowner who paid all of her workers a fair living wage regardless of what they were able to contribute. Does every human being not deserve to have enough? To have basic needs of food, shelter, clothing, education, and health care met? For if we aren't able to even recognize the value of every human life, how will we ever recognize the value of all of life, including our hurting planet? One of the growing movements around the world has been generated by people answering the human value question with a resounding yes. The idea, which is gaining momentum around the world, is an unconditional and universal basic income, UBI for short. Universal and unconditional basic income for every adult. And the difference between this and a welfare system is that you aren't penalized if you work too. You are guaranteed that income regardless of what other money you may earn. And a recent World Economics Forum says this: it's like social security for all, and it's taking root within minds around the world and across the entire political spectrum. People of every political stripe, every economic stripe are getting on board. And it's for a multitude of converging reasons. Rising inequality, decades of stagnant wages, the transformation of lifelong careers into sub-hourly tasks, exponentially advancing technology like robots and deep neural networks that are capable of replacing at least half of all human labor within the next 20 years. And I'm still quoting from the World Economic Forum when they also go on to say, and world-changing events like Brexit and the election of Donald Trump. All of these are pointing to the need to start permanently guaranteeing everyone at least some income. At the forefront of this movement is that it is the compassionate thing to do. At the center of opposition to this movement is that it is not affordable and not deserved, or what is unspoken, that not every human life has equal value. And the reality? Compassion actually works. In places that are testing UBI, Finland, the Netherlands, New Zealand, and closer to home now being tested in Ontario, critics have been found to be wrong in assuming it would cost too much and contribute to laziness in people, which were the two prime arguments. Instead, the findings so far are that those receiving a basic income have greatly reduced levels of anxiety, exhibit more confidence, and have, for the most part, been more motivated to find or create work. And if we really do believe that every human life is of equal value, then we can't stop at just saying yes. We need to live into our yes by participating in political, economic, social, and religious systems that value every human life equally. And we need to challenge political, economic, social, and religious systems that diminish human life. Jesus' message, the deeper message embedded in the vineyard story, is about saying yes. It's acknowledging that every single human life deserves to be sheltered, fed, clothed, educated, and cared for. To say no to this is to continue to believe that we are separate and not interdependent, that life demands us, in fact, to be selfish, rather than acknowledging that when it is good for all, it is good for each of us as well. We can only become one with the universe when we first begin to say yes to the value of every human life. And so with the entire universe embedded in our individual and collective DNAs, I encourage each of us, starting with me, to consider deeply and prayerfully what is fair. Amen.